Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Yogi Valley YouTube channel. So today, just talking about is it okay to be present? Because there's so much going on in the world, isn't there? There's so much like anguish. We see so much like sort of pain and dystopia online and like on our phones, on the PC, and you know, it's almost like the world is kind of crying. Like a I think that comes to mind because like a baby's cry is really gives you like a visceral reaction. It really sort of disturbs you, and I feel like that's kind of what's happening with the world right now, and we're so plugged into it on all levels. It's almost like we've got like a million baby monitors all around us, and like all of this information is sort of creeping into just our everyday life. You wake up in the morning, you're led in your space in bed, and like it's directly there, like the suffering of the world. And in many ways, like that is good, like because it's so good to be informed, and for then there to be like many different voices and opinions, and in a way we're sort of more connected than ever, which is beautiful. But there also then comes this sort of sense of responsibility. Like you see all of these issues that are happening, and if you're sympathetic or empathetic to any degree, you think this is bloody awful what's going on. And there's a call to action. There's a call to action. But the problem is it's like 7 a.m. and you've got to go work. Like, so we get this big call of action feeling, but then there's kind of nowhere for it to go, and it turns into anxiety. Really, I mean, a lot of anxiety is kind of unexpressed feeling. You get this big deluge of kind of information through your phone, and then it creates this all kind of fight or flight response. But then there is no fight or flight. It's you're in traffic and going to work immediately. So it creates what we kind of call anxiety. And there's that, I can't remember who said it, but there's that saying that like no one person should hold the whole world's problems. And so the question is it okay to be present? Is it okay to be peaceful and to feel like that when you know what's happening in the world? And the answer kind of has to be yes. We do have to be, because ultimately all correct action has to come from that place of awareness. You can't fight fire with fire indefinitely, because you burn the whole world down. So there has to be a moment of reflection, of presence, and just this noticing that all of these phenomena that are happening in the world, all of these kind of wars and disturbances and grievances are so real, but ultimately it's because we've forgotten the truth. The truth that we are all one consciousness, essentially experiencing ourselves via different forms. And the more the separation increases and the division increases, the more we suffer, essentially, because it's like your left hand not liking your right hand, and then you're like breaking your own fingers, but the whole is that which suffers. You can't do anything even if one of them wins. So ultimately, whenever you see like catastrophe or war or anything like that online, and if you are living in a privileged position where like maybe like fuel prices have gone up and stuff like that, but there's not war at your door, like you live in relative peace, other than the kind of turmoil of the ego and like sort of the cost of living. That still is quite a privileged position, because a lot of the world doesn't live like that. There is real palpable fear right there, right at the doorstep, fear of death, and kind of their losing a loved one imminently, all of these things. So if you live in relative peace, it is your job, it is your responsibility to fucking enjoy that peace, to the fullest, you know, because this is what everybody else is fighting for, and you've got it. You've got the peace. You've got the thing that they're at war for. You are living in an uncontested land, like in a place where you're allowed to just do that, right? So, you know, there are places where they're not there yet. You know, they are still fighting for what you have. So this is where that idea of gratitude comes in, and you know, expressing gratitude without guilt. You know, you don't have to feel guilty that you have that. You should feel guilty if you have that and you're not enjoying it and you're not making the most of it. And being the example of the world we can all get to together. That's your job if you're privileged. And then, yes, you can 100% advocate for things that you believe in. You can volunteer, you can donate if you've got the financial funds. But all of this comes from that point of view of unity and presence, and hoping that we can reach a stage where everybody is comfortable, everybody's happy, everybody's free. And, you know, this whole like going to war to prevent war situation will never get you there. So yes, stay informed, be informed, know what's going on. But the truth is, if something real happens, if it comes close to you, you're gonna find out either way. Someone's gonna tell you, or something like that. So you don't need to be in this addictive like pain spiral, feeding the pain body with this constant information. You weren't made to hold the problems of the world. You know, if you are in a position to help. If you're not, then don't, you know, be in the hypnotic kind of thrum of just taking in the world's pain, because all that's going to do is amplify your own pain body. And if you are in a position where you live in relative peace, it is your job to enjoy that shit. Because this is what everybody's fighting for. You're living the dream. You really are. And, you know, yes, we're in sort of like, there's potentially an AI boom that's going to happen, and AI is going to take our jobs and stuff like that. But we live in an amazing situation right now where we have the benefit of technology. We can share messages like this, but we can still switch it off if we want to, right? And whether or not that is going to happen for much longer, I don't know. But you personally, you can still go swim in the sea, you can still go and look at the stars, you can read a book by candlelight if you want to, like, you can still do all this. And you have modern roads, food available to you whenever you want it, maybe vehicle transportation. You know, you have all of these things, and the ability to live in a completely kind of centered and natural way as well. So although we are taking in so much more information, what the reality is that we actually live in quite a good situation in compared to the rest of the world. What is frying us at the moment is our reliance and kind of overstimulation in our downtime. That's the problem. We're not really getting any downtime. Like whenever we are meant to be relaxing, we're then like plugged into, whether it's news of the actual world or like some dramatic program or whatever it is. Like, you know, we're always plugged into some sort of information. So even when our body is at rest and we're just sort of flopped on the sofa, the mind is still being stimulated in that way, and the body's not expressing anything either, you know. So we're constantly in this sort of like cycle of feeding the mind, the body reacting, and then nothing happening with it, and we're like, why am I anxious? And it's like, well, because your body's creating fight or flight response to all the bloody images it's seeing, because it doesn't know the difference, and then you're just led there eating God knows what. Not you particularly, but me as well, everybody. So yeah, it's your job. If you can, it's your job to be present. If you haven't got a war at your door or like a major issue, it's your job to enjoy the relative peace you have. And of course, it all scales. It does. You know, like sometimes, like we are as big as the boxes we live in, and humans are incredibly adaptable as well. You know, you can go from having a lot of problems to not many, but then the smaller problems that wouldn't even have been a factor for you 6 months ago then become your big problems. Of course, that happens. But again, that's where the gratitude comes in, to just be thankful for what you do have. Running water, and if you've grown up and you've always had that, it's hard to be grateful for that. But honestly, it is a luxury, big time. So yeah, if you can, then you must, so if you can be present, if you can be peaceful, then always choose that. And any action that you do take to better the world will come from that place of presence, and it will be lasting, it will be organic, and most importantly, it will be true. All right, thank you very much, guys.